Every gardener wants rich, living soil, teeming with earthworms. We know that worms aerate the ground, break down organic matter, and leave behind castings that are more nutrient-rich than almost any fertilizer you could buy. Yet many people struggle to bring worms into their garden beds even when they are adding compost and mulch. The truth is there is often just one missing piece that keeps earthworms from turning your soil into a living factory of fertility. Today we'll uncover what that is, why it matters, and exactly how you can add it to your soil so that worms arrive by the thousands and stay for good. Earthworms cannot thrive without a steady carbon source. The most overlooked factor in worm populations is not nitrogen, moisture, or even compost. It is carbon. Worms need a constant supply of carbon-rich material to balance the nitrogen in food scraps and green matter. In natural forest floors, this carbon comes from fallen leaves, rotting wood, and fibrous plant matter. In many gardens, however, we pile in grass clippings, kitchen scraps, and manure, which are all nitrogen-heavy. Without carbon, the soil becomes acidic, overheated, and unbalanced, driving worms away. Adding a steady carbon base is the one thing missing in most gardens that can change the entire environment for worms. Adding carbon-rich material balances the soil environment. To attract worms in large numbers, you need to introduce a carbon source that breaks down slowly while feeding microbes at a steady rate. Brown leaves, shredded cardboard, straw, and even sawdust can all serve this purpose. The key is not to dump them on the surface alone, but to layer them properly with nitrogen materials, so decomposition happens at a balanced pace. A good starting ratio is 2 parts carbon material to 1 part nitrogen. For example, if you're adding 2 buckets of shredded cardboard, mix in 1 bucket of fresh grass clippings or manure. This ratio, really mirrors what worms naturally encounter on the forest floor. Moisture and placement determine whether worms stay or leave. Earthworms breathe through their skin, which requires a moist environment. However, too much wet nitrogen material without carbon will create anaerobic conditions that worms avoid. This is where carbon's slow-absorbing nature helps. It soaks up excess liquid, holds it in the soil, and prevents foul smells. When adding shredded cardboard or straw, it is best to bury it 2 to 3 inches below the soil surface where the moisture is stable. Worms migrate to this middle zone because it offers both food and protection from surface heat and predators. Practical gardeners can try creating worm-feeding trenches by digging shallow trenches between rows, layering carbon and nitrogen together, watering it, and covering lightly with soil. Worms will colonize these trenches and then spread into the surrounding bed. Microbial activity explodes when carbon is available. Worms do not eat raw cardboard or dry straw directly. Instead, they feed on the microbes that colonize these materials as they break down. By introducing carbon, you are not just feeding worms, you're building a microbial buffet. Within 2 to 3 weeks of adding carbon sources, bacterial and fungal networks expand, releasing a steady stream of nutrients. Worms follow this microbial trail, thriving in the exact zones where decomposition is balanced. A gardener can speed up the process by pre-soaking shredded cardboard or straw in a compost tea, or diluted molasses solution before burying it. This jumpstarts microbial activity and makes the food source attractive to worms much faster. Carbon-rich matter, really improves soil structure for long-term worm habitat. Another reason carbon is the missing piece is its physical effect on soil. Heavy clay, for instance, suffocates worms because it compacts too tightly and, holds water poorly. Mixing in shredded leaves or paper fibers loosens the structure, creating small air pockets where worms can move easily. Sandy soil, on the other hand, drains too quickly. Adding carbon-rich organic matter slows the drainage, allowing worms to stay in the zone without drying out. This dual function of carbon, balancing nutrition and improving structure, explains why soils rich in leaf mold and decomposed wood are always filled with worms, even without kitchen scraps or manure. To put this into practice, start by collecting a steady supply of carbon sources. Shredded cardboard without colored ink is excellent, and brown paper bags work just as well. Dry autumn leaves are one of the best natural materials, and straw is useful when chopped into small pieces. For every bucket of nitrogen you add, match it with at least 2 buckets of carbon. Moisten the mixture until it feels like a wrung-out sponge and bury it just below the surface. Repeat this layering every 2 weeks during the growing season. In 30 to 60 days, you should see worm populations rise noticeably, and their castings will begin appearing across your beds. The missing piece ties the entire soil food web together. When gardeners focus only on nitrogen-rich materials, they miss the foundation that makes soil ecosystems stable. Earthworms are the final evidence that balance has been achieved, because they only thrive when carbon, nitrogen, moisture, and microbes align. By adding carbon consistently, you transform your soil from a feeding station into a permanent home for worms. Once established, their populations maintain themselves, aerating the ground and creating fertile conditions that support every crop you plant. The one thing missing from your soil that keeps earthworms from flooding in is a steady, carbon-rich food source. Compost alone is not enough, and scraps will not do the job without balance. Add leaves, cardboard, straw, or sawdust in the right ratio with nitrogen. Keep the soil moist and cover it just below the surface. In a matter of weeks, you will see thousands of worms claiming your garden as their home, working harder than any tool or fertilizer you could buy. If you want more in-depth, science-backed gardening methods that transform soil the natural way, make sure you subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this video with other serious growers who want their soil alive and thriving.